Hey, how's it going, everybody? Welcome to today's live stream. My name's Jim Bader. I usually sit over there behind a desk in a nice little booth, but today we have a different show. Last minute. Welcome, everybody. Hey, Richard, dropping some comments in there. Meteor exploding over North Texas. Yeah, we did. I didn't get to see it personally, but I saw the reports about it. Calls about UFOs, emails, the typical thing. But yeah, it was pretty exciting. So good to see you, everybody. Don't forget, as always, if you have questions, you have comments, you want to interact with us, just drop it in the chat. We will, or by we, I mean me, I will get to them as soon as I can get to them. So thank you all for joining. Levin is out today, so I'm going to be taking his space. And that also means I'm here solo. Just me, nobody else. So any interactions we get, we're going to help this show move along much better, considering that I don't have an event to bounce stuff off of. Hey, Lamia, glad to see you here also. Anyway, let's get into this. So we have a couple interesting things that we want to talk about today on stream. The first is kind of a sky update, but not completely. So let's go ahead and jump into that real quick. We're going to start with the sky the way you would see it if you went outside on Saturday. So the 31st, Saturday the 31st. I'm starting on the 31st because it's a little closer to today and it's going to be a little bit more relevant, but the concept still applies and the sky will look essentially the same. So this is what we'll see if we go outside on Saturday the 31st. But if we came outside tonight or the night after, we see about the same thing as long as you're about an hour and a half or so after sunset. So we have two objects that are pretty bright in the sky. Right here, we're looking at the star Spica. This is the brightest star in the constellation of Virgo. But down here, this is the important part that I wanted to bring up. This little point of light down here is actually not a star. It looks like a star to us in the sky. It's a planet. So maybe you already noticed the word planet itself actually means wandering star. The ancient people saw these stars in the sky and they had the ability to move, right? So they called them planets, or a star that had the power to move. That's also probably why they got names like God names. Anyway, Saturn will reach opposition on August 2nd. So that's just early next week before our next stream. I suggest if you haven't, go outside and look at Saturn. Saturn and Jupiter are up. You should be able to see them if you can stay up relatively late, so 11:30 midnight. No problem seeing Saturn and Jupiter. That doesn't, by the way, take away from the point of you can still see Venus and Mars. If you're really careful, you can see Mars, but Venus is so bright in the western sky. This will be the eastern sky just after dark all this week. Yeah, Kurt, I'm glad to fill in. Honestly, I enjoy it. My job before, I was mostly just a video producer, which is what I do now, I guess, was doing programs in the planetarium. And I can tell you that I missed that chunk of my job tremendously. Really, really miss it. So this is a nice change of pace for me. I'm certainly happy with it. Anyway, let's jump into the news. There's been so much news going around talking about the politics of Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic. We're definitely not going to get into that, and stuff surrounding it. We're gonna touch on a tiny bit of some of the news that's been surrounding the space tourist stuff, but we're going to get to that in just a moment. So I first want to start with something that I think is really cool. This is just me personally. It's what I'm interested in. I love all space flight stuff, International Space Station stuff. So I want to jump into some of these pieces. That's what I typically bring up for most streams for Levin. Here we have a chunk of the International Space Station. In particular, this is the Zvezda model or module. And behind me, this is most of Zvezda here. And then this little piece right here is called Piers. They're removing this. This is going to be the first decommissioned chunk of the International Space Station. I saw this headline and I thought, oh no, it's happening. Russia had kind of mentioned maybe they didn't want to continue the International Space Station. A lot of it was aging. And this worried a lot of people. I mean, the end life date for the ISS has been pushed back and pushed back and pushed back. So I was a little nervous The good news is nobody has to be nervous because after many, many delays and years of delays, it seems like Roscosmos launched. By seems like, I mean they definitely launched the replacement module for this. And after maybe something was going wrong, it's still scheduled to be later this week, tomorrow, or maybe Friday at the latest, docking here in place of this. So this is pretty exciting. We're getting a new module to the International Space Station. It's going to be attached to the Russian Zvezda module, but it's pretty big. So we have some images of it. You guys can see little bits of it here. Let me scoot over. It's huge. You can see the size of the people here to this. This is going to have like resting area for astronauts. Mostly it's going to be stuff surrounding experiments, but storage, rest area. I mean, this is a whole new chunk of it. Did part of it burn up this week? It's already been released and burned up. I think it has already been released. I couldn't find information right before we started, so I was like, I'm just going to leave that part out. So thank you, Kurt. If you guys want to follow Kurt here, yeah, that sounds about right. It should have been released because it's going to be docking tomorrow. And hopefully it burns up. That's what we'd bank on. But either way, I'm excited about this. I've had this on my list of things to talk about for weeks. But this is a big deal to me. This is means, hey, the life of the International Space Station is going to continue. And even though it seemed like Russia was trying to make a play on we're not going to support this, U.S. and the other countries supporting the International Space Station are going to have to figure out how to do it on their own. That's not the case. I mean, why would you dump millions and millions and millions of dollars into this if you don't plan on sticking around? So I think it shows longevity. It's important, I think. Anyway, yeah, it's going to replace the Pirs airlock module. That's what we just pointed out before. And then if you want to see a little bit more to it, we have the diagram here. This is the module back here, this Zvezda service module. This is what it's attaching to, and then it will dock right here. I think this is actually it. Yeah, multi-purpose laboratory module. That's the US or international name for it, MLM. It's already listed on this little graphic. Pretty neat, though. To me, I think it's anyway. Yeah, I'm certainly curious how you guys feel about it. We have a comment from Kurt. We need to build it out and keep expanding it. Put some tourism up there and help finance it. I mean, if tourism brings the finance we need to get the research and other important stuff done, I agree. I do think, and I believe Levent would agree with me on this. We've had conversations about this. What comes after the International Space Station is also really important. So that lunar module we mentioned last week, that's important. And if funds need to be diverted from the ISS, I'm okay with that. Obviously, I would personally prefer they just get the funds to do both the ISS at full capacity and the moon module, or the lunar orbiter that they're going to have there. But I agree, money, whatever it takes. If we need to pay, or we need rich people to pay us, or the U.S. or NASA or ISS to get up there, let's take advantage of it. I'm all for it. Anyway, being just a solo stream today, this is going to be a little bit shorter, so let's jump into the next chunk because we can. Lots of headlines about this, and I just thought it was funny. I saw it everywhere. I saw it covering Twitter, Facebook, all of my typical news sites that I kind of grabbed news and updates from. The FAA announced that they were going to change what it takes to be an astronaut. And this, to me, was pretty funny because we had all these new astronauts getting their wings. If you guys saw, Blue Origin did a wing ceremony. Virgin Galactic had something like that where they gave everybody their wings after the flight. But those are astronaut wings offered specifically by Blue Origin and Virgin Galactic. They were not the FAA wings that like pilots get after they've covered so many bases. I don't know what all the stipulations, but there are several different types of wings you can get outside of astronaut wings, which are a totally different thing. But yeah, they added some new stipulations to it, and by stipulations I mean one primary stipulation that changed. So in the early 2000s, I think like 2004, the FAA went in and implemented the first like, hey, this is what we say it takes to get astronaut wings. And that really just said you got to go 50 miles up in the air. If you get up there, you're good to go. And since then, they've given astronaut wings to private contractors before. Spaceship One, I think they gave 2 astronaut wings to them for, I want to say they went 100 miles up. Spaceship One went really, really high. Spaceship Two had some people. This is Virgin Galactic, and others. So it's not the first one for sure. But just this month, FAA added some changes. So they said that you not only have to go 50 miles up, or at least 50 miles up, but you also need to demonstrate activities during flight that are essential to public safety or contributed to human spaceflight safety. And this, to me, means you need to do something worthwhile while you're up there. So if you're a space tourist and you just sat in a seat and you got launched into space and you came back down, it doesn't count, which is sad for me. For the official Wally Funk, you know, that was good. I was glad that Wally Funk was going to get to be an astronaut officially, but well, you know, what are you going to do? I'm not sure how I feel about it. I mean, Jeff Bezos didn't do anything technical to get up there. He just sat in a super comfy chair and got exploded into space. All right, we got another comment from Kurt. It says, please speak with Levent about helping him do the show regularly. I've been trying to get him to do a longer show, and you could be the host of the second half if he doesn't have the time. That's an idea. I will happily reach out to him about that. We could do a little different segment. You know, I've been thinking and pushing on Levent with this, that we could do some call-in stuff and have you guys join us at least over voice for some things. All the technical aspect, I already worked that out. That's done. But it could be an interesting thing. So we might be doing that in the future if you guys do want to interact with us in a more direct way. We might be doing some call-in stuff. I thought that would be neat, and I worked it out, and I'm pretty happy about it. Anyway, let's jump into the most exciting story in astronomy, not spaceflight, none of that stuff. Has to do with this blurry picture, which looks a little bit like one of those cheap frisbees from the late 90s that were really trendy. It was like a disc. They really drove me crazy because they just didn't fly like a frisbee to me. But this is not just a frisbee, not a picture of something boring. This is spectacular and applies to us and might lead to some an interview coming up soon. I haven't announced it officially yet, but it's possible. This is what we call a circumstellar disk. So when looking for exoplanets or let's say a star after a star forms, there's leftover debris. This leftover debris is this ring that you're seeing here, and that debris is what we expect forms planets. Now, we've seen this before, and we've seen planets being formed. So this little object right here is what we think as a planet. So it's called, I have it written down here somewhere, PDS 70C. Oh, that's such a romantic name for a planet. Anyway, PDS 70C is special in that if you guys notice, and I can zoom in on it quite a bit, notice around PDS 70C, there's like some matter here, and this matter seems to be moving around it. So we have, if I go back, this is a circumstellar disk as it's going around a star, a small star. This little disk that we're seeing up close, this is what we call a circumplanetary disk. What we think, and this is crazy that we're able to see this, we think that this is forming moons. So we're looking at the formation of an exomoon. And we do have researchers here at UTA who study exomoons, and I have some contacts that I'm going to try to pull. I'm really, really pumped about this, but this is cool. This is great news, and to me, a pretty exciting little chunk of astronomy. And astronomy that we can all relate to, not this stuff where we say that the gas on this star is acting different than we expected. I bring these articles up to Levent every once in a while, and sometimes I get shut down. Sometimes he's like, yeah, we should talk about this thing. And we've done it from time to time. So if something's a little more technical or a little more detailed and we end up being forced to use bigger words to describe some of this stuff, I feel like it can get a little bit tedious or boring or what have you. yeah, I don't want to go into it too much. So yeah, Janet, forming a moon. This is crazy to me. So, uh, I mean, it's entirely possible that we see exomoons being a thing that we regularly find rather than very, very rare. It's not undone. So, um, yeah, we have some UTA researchers who work out in New Mexico who study this thing, and I will be announcing something hopefully soon. Yeah, we'll get into it. A couple other things that I wanted to touch on. Bring on the bigger worlds. uh, yeah, I might. We'll see. I mean, we could bring up the small fact. We found water vapor evidence on Ganymede. So Jupiter has as you guys may or may not know, Jupiter has just an insane amount of moons. I don't even know. The number kind of fluctuates, and it has fluctuated over the years. Like going back billions of years in Earth's history, Lamia says, yeah. I mean, I should zoom out. I'm going to go back a little bit. This would be 4 billion years ago, easily, maybe 5 billion years ago in our solar system's history. I'm not just going to say Earth's. And then this planet that's forming is huge. I think it would make Jupiter look like a little Earth next to Jupiter. It's enormous. I don't know its actual size, but it is really, really big. There's also, and this is really interesting, the distance from this planet to the star, I think they said is about 34 AU, which is about Neptune or Uranus, somewhere out there. So it's really, really far. I think that's Neptune, 34 AU. But it is really far from the stars. So this giant planet is way out there. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of how our solar system was formed in a similar situation. All solar systems that we know of had to be formed in some way, and this is what makes logical sense. What's neat about seeing these images is this circumstellar disk. When astronomers first discovered planetary nebula, I think we looked at it a couple weeks ago. I might be able to bring it up, but no promises. You guys might end up getting seen with a wacky little panel. I'll try to do this. We're just going to cheat. You guys don't tell anybody. We're turning the atmosphere all the way off. We're going to look straight up in the sky. I don't know if I have time before this resets. Usually I'm back there helping to make sure that nothing goes wrong here. So this constellation we mentioned before, this is Lyra the Harp. Looks like a fish, supposed to be a musical instrument, a lyre. I say harp for children, that's just a habit, please forgive me there. And then inside of it we have what's called the Ring Nebula, which is like one of the most beautiful deep sky objects that there are. It's just crazy. This is super beautiful. The Ring Nebula is what we call a planetary nebula, and they called it a planetary nebula because when astronomers first looked at it, you're going to have to be patient as I wiggle this back in. When astronomers first looked at this object, they thought this looks like a star in the middle, and then this area around the star which is forming planets. And this is just bonkers to me that today we get to say, yeah, this is a planetary nebula, and this is a circumstellar disk, which is what they thought a planetary nebula is. And you see, I mean, I see the comparison, right? I mean, it makes sense to me. It's pretty nuts. I like it, though. I'm certainly pumped about it. Anyway, we got sidetracked. Thank you for the comments. Richard says, the disk is super bright. Hot games? Gases. Oh, hot gases. Just hotter stuff. So not necessarily just gases, probably primarily gases, because most common stuff in the universe is hydrogen and helium. So yeah, there's a good chance that it's gases, but not necessarily. Might be some more, dense material than gas there, but yes, hot stuff. I mean, this is left over after a star forming. In terms of total temperature, I don't know exactly how hot it is. I didn't look that far into the article or the papers surrounding it, but that's a good question, Richard. I will try to write that down so that we can ask a research scientist who is working on this type of stuff and see if I can get her input. I'm really excited for the opportunity to bring her on to the live stream. Haven't done it yet, so this could be neat. Anyway, Last thing I kind of want to bring up, I don't have too much time, but Jupiter's moon Ganymede, scientists found evidence that there was water vapor there. So um, they're not observing water vapor directly. I just want to point that out, but they saw evidence of that. And it's a small thing when you see evidence of something, but if it's something like water, it's less of a small thing because on the Earth, if we want to find life, we have to find water. If you can find water, there's going to be life there, whether it's trapped under a piece of ice for a million to 10 million years. You're going to find life, and that's pretty. I was going to say groundbreaking, but ice breaking maybe is a better word, because all of these big moons of Jupiter's are really just ice chunks of ice sitting out there. So certainly hoping to find more. I mean, I'd love to know when we're going to send these things to places like Europa, where we know there's water there, places like Enceladus, where we know there's water there, and Titan, which we're getting into that. They're going to send a drone to Titan. And while Titan doesn't have water, it has a dense atmosphere, so that could mean protection from stuff. And I don't know, could be interesting. I'm definitely pretty fired up about it, but that's something to keep an eye on, this evidence of water vapor on Ganymede. Last week, I want to thank you guys for hanging around. Last week, we had some of you at least almost dip. It looked like a lot of you came back, but we ran into some technical difficulties, which I still am not sure what happened, but I went through and did my best to fix anything, and as far as I can see today, we are going off without a hitch. So looks like we got it fixed, and hopefully in the coming weeks we'll iron out any other issues. I do get to say we don't have any updates yet on when the planetarium is going to reopen. Hopefully we can get that done soon, but it is really, really close. I just wanted to reiterate to you guys that I have everything ready to go downstairs. We're just waiting on final permissions and additional things, and some news to go out around that. Anyway, any questions from you guys? I know Lamia sent me an awesome question, and I really want to answer it in a super cool way, Lamia, asking about planet orbit, like orbital direction. So in our solar system, our planets orbit around the sun, mostly in the same direction, but it doesn't have to be that way. And you might have two questions there, right? Why do they orbit the wrong direction? Or why do all of them orbit in the same direction? And I have a really fun way to answer that. Kurt, you bring up what kind of drone is being sent to Titan, any specific detectors or science projects? There's a bunch that are proposed, and I can't tell you. By that I mean I don't know. Not that I'm like not allowed to tell you. I don't know what all detectors are going to have on there, but I'm sure it's going to be a whole lot of what can we see, what does it smell, what does it pick up there. I certainly would be curious to see what kind of damage the sun is still doing to the moon out there on the surface. So probably some particle detectors in there or something like that. But the drone is called Dragonfly. I don't think I can get an image from here. I'm trying to find it. I don't see anything concrete about it, but it is still planned. I know they've been talking about it for a long time. Planned mission to Titan. Titan is a pretty spectacular little world there. All right, I found something here. So Dragon mass spectrometer. It's going to identify chemical components. It makes sense. So you want to know what's there, sniffing around. And then Dragonfly gamma ray and neutron spectrometer. So they're going to be seeing what kind of damage the sun is doing. It says surface compositions. Dragon geophysics and meteorology package. It would be interesting to see the differences in weather patterns you get on another atmosphered body in the solar system, for sure. camera suite, and additional monitoring instruments. This is going to be pretty spectacular. I'm certainly pumped about it. So good thing to bring that up, Kurt. I'll put that on the docket of things we might just jump into for sure. Anyway, that does it for the show today. I hate to be short today, but I was this may or may not have been a last minute change in how we were doing the show today. So I had to focus and make sure that all the stuff that I could do solo, I was able to do solo. And hopefully you guys had no idea. Anyway, thanks so much, you guys. We will get to your questions next week, and we will see you next week, hopefully as normal. If not, we'll have another exciting solo gym show. We'll see. Thank you guys so much.